Buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's event to address the issue of fostering an inclusive bioeconomy in the Amazon biome. We are going to start first by hearing some words from the Vice President of Sectors and Knowledge of the Inter-American Development Bank, Benigno Lopez. I welcome everyone who's listening in. I'm Irene Arias-Hoffman, Chief Executive Officer of the IDB Lab, and I give the floor now to Benigno. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you to the launching of the 2022 version of the Challenge of the Amazon region. I'd like to share some numbers to you. A big part of the biodiversity, that is 10% of the biodiversity of our country, is found in the Amazon region. That's 1/5 of the forested surface of the world can be found in the Amazon. The region is a true treasure that we should care for the well-being of the planet and the future generations. That's why we need new and innovative ideas. The ecosystem of the Amazon should go hand in hand with the ecosystem of innovation. That's why, together with 1T.org, World Economic Forum, and Uplink, we are launching the Challenge of Amazon 2022. This is the second edition of this, and we offer to you now the possibility of offering or supporting with financial resources a group of ecopreneurs to accelerate or to improve or have an impact on the region. We want to be ambitious because without great aspirations, we're not going to achieve the different type of accomplishments like medical accomplishments we've had. This type of innovation might help us have a positive impact in a quicker way. This partnership is within the Amazon initiative headed up by IDB with the support of bilateral, multilateral groups for the improvement of and sustainable agreement of the Amazon region to the benefit of everyone in the region. The IDB group, responding to the commitment of COP26, seeks to strengthen the role of the local indigenous groups in their role as guardians of the forest, and to do so in an inclusive way. All of these communities can, in a sustainable way, avail themselves of the greater employment and income opportunities that this can offer. We are eager to join efforts with 1T.org, World Economic Forum, and Uplink to reach a whole host of ecopreneurs through the Amazon initiative and IDB and our innovation lab, BidLab. I give the floor now to Nicole, who has headed up this effort, working with the World Economic Forum and 1T.org. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much, Irene, Benigno, and the IDB group for the excellent collaboration. I'm delighted to be here with all of you for the launch of this second challenge for the bioeconomy. 1T.org is the World Economic Forum's Trillion Trees platform. It was set up to conserve, restore, and grow 1 trillion trees by 2030. And we were set up to bring together the reforestation community around the world in support of the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. We focus on 3 pillars. The first pillar is around unlocking private sector commitments and investment for forest conservation and restoration. And in our first 2 years of existence, we've been able to catalyze corporate commitments for the restoration of 5.7 billion trees around the world. Our second pillar is to build multi-stakeholder partnerships in key regions. And the Amazon biome, of course, is a top priority for all the reasons that you've just heard from Benigno. And we've been supporting high-level dialogues to promote an inclusive bioeconomy in the Amazon. In addition, and this connects to our third pillar, which is about empowering ecopreneurs. We want to see a new generation of entrepreneurs who are putting ecosystem restoration at the heart of their business models. We want this to become mainstream and therefore to create an enabling environment where we can support as many ecopreneurs as possible to scale their projects. So we're very excited because last year in 2021, 1T.org and IDB Lab already partnered for a pilot challenge on our platform called Uplink, which is a platform to crowdsource innovations for the SDGs. And we ran a pilot challenge to find innovative bioeconomy projects in the Amazon rainforest that protect and restore biodiversity and ecosystem function and benefit the populations living in the Amazon. This year, and so last year, 15 innovators were selected and joined our innovators community. They benefited from visibility, from credibility via the World Economic Forum, and also access to networks and programming within our Uplink Innovation Network to help them scale. And so this year, we're very excited for the second edition, where we're combining our strengths with IDB Group to support more ecopreneurial startups so that they can accelerate and scale and generate long-lasting impact to conserve and restore the Amazon forest. Thank you, and I will hand back to Irene.
Muchas gracias, Nicole. Voy a pasar al español.
Thank you very much. Now, speaking in Spanish. Anyone who needs interpretation services, it is available. And for the duration of the time we're going to be together, the next 40 minutes, we are going to hold a conversation with panelists who we will now introduce, followed by some comments and thoughts by Nicole, who will join us again at the end, and something else that's very important, which is a call to action, and then we will conclude with a video. That's what is coming up, this NESsT segment, and the remaining part of this meeting will all be conducted in Spanish, and you have interpretation available to you on the Zoom platform in Portuguese or English from Spanish. So we have a stellar panel, 5 very renowned people for the ecosystem and the bioeconomy of the Amazon region, Amazon biome. Now I'm going to introduce each and every one of them, but before that, just a few thoughts on what Nicole said and what Benigno said regarding the reason we are gathered here. The reason we're here is because we're fully aware and we are committed to the need to act concretely to conserve the Amazon, and every minute, the equivalent of 3 soccer fields are lost. And so we're going to have more of the same if we don't do anything. And there is a sense of urgency now. We have to undertake actions, and these partnerships that are being forged here are important because ultimately the bioeconomy is something that needs to be addressed with inclusive and innovative models, taking into account the local context. There isn't just one bioeconomy. There are many different types of economies that can avail themselves of these bioeconomies. That's why I'm so pleased that today we have represented here on this panel such different yet important partners, all pulling behind the same purpose of finding solutions that will be sustainable and inclusive. With us, we have COICA. We also have José Gregorio Mirabal, who represents COICA as the General Coordinator. You're welcome. Also with us, Loic, who comes from an organization that is actively working in a concrete way in the Amazon. Carlos Salinas is also with us, the Administrative Director of the Forest Programs of ACTO, the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization. Also with us, nice to have you here, Carlos. Liliana, Jauregui, who is the Regional Coordinator for Latin America. For the conservation of nature, and Holland, and she's going to give us a rights-based perspective. And we are also going to hear from an entrepreneur, Felipe. Welcome, Felipe, who also won this open challenge, the pilot one I referred to, that Nicole referred to. He was the winner of that. That was done between Uplink and the World Economic Forum last year, which spurs us to redouble our efforts and to scale it up to what we are now doing with this launch. So let's start with our first block of questions on challenges, and then we're going to zero in on solutions and opportunities. So to start, I'd like to give the floor to José Gregorio. Nowadays, we speak a lot about bioeconomy. José, from the standpoint of indigenous peoples, what are the challenges that indigenous peoples face in taking part in the bioeconomy? A warm welcome, respectful welcome to everyone, brethren. I apologize, or is apologizing for my projection, my screen, because I'm just coming out of an event in Chile in which we are also defending our rights. So that's why I have my background of the Amazon region, because we are the champions, the defenders of the largest tropical forest in the world. On that, I'll start by saying it's very important for us today to express thanks to Mother Earth, Pachamama, Mother Jungle. Today is the World Day of Mother Earth. All of us who are here today, hopefully these words and our thoughts can come together, coalesce for us to keep the Amazon alive, because without it, we can't live. It can't live without us, and we cannot live with it, without nature, without the Amazon. So we find ourselves before a very complex scenario, a very critical time period for nature, for humanity, for all of us. But something else that's key, we have a world economic crisis underway, and that also has an effect on indigenous peoples and the Amazon jungle. So we aspire today to come together in partnership to be fair and to be a part of a global response and to bring to bear actions in the field. That's why we are here. That's what we aspire to achieving today. What are the challenges? Our economy, our indigenous economy, is for living a full life in the Amazon region. It's for a dignified life, as we say, good way of living. We have this connection with nature, with spirituality, and with our cosmovision and our culture. So how our economy is connected to an intercultural and planetary economy is what we're talking about, but also that respects nature, that keeps the forest alive. So we believe that the big challenge before us would play out in different scenario. First, to have an implementation plan that's a very ambitious, very positive, that's not small in scale, but large in scale. We've been trying out pilot projects for the last 30 years, small scale projects, but we need to dive in headlong into a large scale program without any fear, on an equal footing as partners, not as beneficiaries. If we don't do that in a big scale, in a big way, with all of the safeguards that businesses and governments can provide and be subject to, we will not achieve this. So the best situation would be for us to break through this barrier holding states back. Since the summit of the Earth, the last 30 years, we've been carrying out small-scale pilot projects, but we never really dove in. So I know that the IDB, I know that you please take this opportunity to break through, to be more ambitious. Over the last 30 years, the approach has been that of governments. Now we can work with companies. That's what we're doing. There are many responsible companies that are eager to take action. That's why we believe with responsible businesses, we can tear down many barriers to make this a reality. But to do this, we have to put together a good implementation plan of intercultural economy, not just indigenous culture and community, but with businesses as well, local and regional governments that want to be a part of this. But we haven't seen this done in the last 30 years. So that's what we aspire to see now. This has to be based on trust, transparency, respect, and especially that our priorities be taken into account, our economies be taken into account. I know I don't have any more time, but in a nutshell, that's it. Let's strengthen this approach today and build this together. Thank you. Thank you, Gregorio. Thank you for your very positive, ambitious words. I give the floor now to Carlos to hear what ACTO's perspective is. How do we promote an inclusive economy region-wide? What are the barriers we have to overcome? Thank you very much, Irene. I thank you for the invitation to be here today, a very special day, as Gregorio has said. I would like to start by complementing some of the information provided by Benigno and Gregorio. The Amazon region is a region that covers 8 million square kilometers, more than 44% of South America, with 40 million inhabitants between urban populations and indigenous communities, local communities. So in addition to having 25% or 10% rather of world biodiversity, as Benigno said, our director. So the important thing here to develop the bioeconomy of the Amazon, this needs to start by, based on the understanding that this is a interconnected ecosystem that crosses the borders of 8 different countries: Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Guyana, Suriname, Venezuela, Peru, and the indigenous populations joined efforts in '98, and they signed on to a Amazon Cooperation Agreement, which is the only socio-environmental accord in effect, giving ACTO the mandate to operate in the region. So all of the challenges that we have in the Amazon region too, we're talking about a biome with many different interconnections that are quite complex, that call for systemic and cross-border management. At the end of the 90s was when the organization started, that is this treaty, to initiate a political dialogue to bring about technical financial cooperation across the 8 countries to bring down the asymmetries that exist among them. Now, the natural resources, which falls under the aegis and is considered by ACTO, each member country, in fact, has its own concept and definition of what bioeconomy is, their own notion of development nationally, but regionally speaking, a common denominator brings them together, and that is developing sustainable economic activities that are profitable, developing natural resources in the Amazon, mindful of biodiversity benefiting the local populations, including indigenous populations. We also spoke of challenges at that time that we face every day in our organization, deforestation being one. There have to be policies for reforestation and cooperation, the illegal activities that take place, the encroachment onto lands, illegal mining and harvesting of trees. Despite how rich natural resources and biodiversity of the region is, we also see poverty that besets those who live there. We need opportunities, and on opportunities, I would like to underscore that fostering the bioeconomy in the Amazon is something ACTO sees as an economic, environmental, and social approach to implement the programs, projects, initiatives that have been carried out in the Amazon region over time. That's my first remark. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. So we have heard from two key actors, Gregorio, about the guardians of the Amazon, the indigenous peoples, and the organization COICA, and from Carlos, and I thank Carlos for giving us the ACTO's perspective, a regional accord, and you've talked about the management of knowledge contained within that region. Now we're going to hear from three complementary viewpoints. Loic as investor and the impact those investments going to have. And then we ask you, Liliana, the same question as a representative, the standpoint of a network, the largest network of conservation NGOs worldwide. And as I said in the beginning, ultimately, we are going to hear about challenges from the standpoint of an entrepreneur. Felipe, through your initiative, being the award winner of the first challenge. So first we're going to hear from Loic and then from Liliana and Felipe. Thank you, Irene, Nicole, IDB, and World Economic Forum for inviting me. Our perspective, NESt's perspective about the challenges we see in the bioeconomy. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about the role of NESt in developing this concept. We accelerate and finance undertakings which create good jobs for vulnerable communities in Latin America. We also have a specific program aimed at bioeconomy, entrepreneurial projects, and this program supports 45 different businesses involving 6,000 people, small producers from local communities, indigenous communities mostly, and sustainable value chains. As investors, we face four main challenges to finance bioeconomy. That'd be market-based, financing, geography, and supply chains. I'm going to explain each one. As regards the market, many value chains of bioeconomies are new ones. The demand and the prices are volatile. The Citrangi seed, for example, has an economic and environmental potential that's quite high, but it has faced demand swings that represent a risk for investors. As regards the market, again, the commercial aspect, that is those businesses devoted to bioeconomy, usually depend mostly on one or two clients for most of their sales. That translates into a high concentration of sales among few clients. Obviously, that is more risky for investors. Now on financing. Capital is necessary to develop bioeconomy. Local businesses face challenges to meet clients' orders, to fill clients' orders owing to a lack of working capital. That means that companies don't grow as quickly as they otherwise could, and the social environmental impact is lower because there are fewer producers who can sell through these value chains. Geography. Bioeconomy businesses are very far from their clients, which are usually in large urban centers. It might take a couple of days, sometimes 5 or 6 days to get their products to market. That means that companies can accumulate inventory because that would entail a high cost, and also moving the product is costly. That is a logistics problem that we need to overcome for investors and for entrepreneurs alike. 4, regarding supply chains, when we speak of the Amazon region, what comes to mind is an abundance of natural products, but it's very hard for bioeconomy companies to develop their supply chains and to meet the market's demands. That because it takes time to identify new communities where there is sufficient natural resources, sustainable harvesting, for example, and having good management plans. These are the 4 biggest challenges that we face when we look at businesses in the bioeconomy sector of Latin America.
Loic, thank you very much for your perspective as an investor and accelerator of projects. Liliana, this week when I was talking to you and Loic, you were talking about your experience as an expert in environmental rights. That is another dimension. From your point of view, what should we do to promote an Amazon region and an inclusive bioeconomy? Which other challenges do you see here? Eden and the IDB team, thank you very much for your invitation. This is an excellent panel, an illustrious panel. I would like to correct something. I work for the Dutch Committee of Nature Protection. I always like to make this correction. In Europe and Holland, they are interested in the Amazon because of the ecological footprint, and we are interested and we want to contribute with the development of the Amazon region from the inclusive point of view. Now, embarking in this matter, I would very briefly like to outline a number of things that we should take into account. I want to advocate the vision of inclusion, not as something voluntary, but an opportunity to have something effective that can coordinate different objectives. For this, I would like to start with an example that would be with gender. Now, gender, as everything that is related to inclusion, is a structural problem in society. What we are going to do, if we don't analyze it, we don't focus on these things, will fall because of their own force, and they will not resolve structural problems like the destruction of wealth and also the marginalization of societies connected to women and the youth. Now, with the gender example, I would like to give you a perspective how gender and the forest are correlated. Now the responsibilities between men and women, this determines the dependence on ecological resources. So things like the access to land, the access to productive products and ecological products are different from men and women, and the knowledge that these groups hold regarding the ecological resources studies that we've carried out in my organization and the UN, we've demonstrated that women have their income more dependent from the forest 4 times more than men. And the way they use the forest is different. When you identify in communities certain things, you realize that women, and this would be a study that was carried out in a number of Amazon regions, women can identify more plant species than men. So yes, if we know this and if we are developing projects, it is important to see this information because this is going to impact the social groups, but also the ecosystems and the economy. And there are a number of examples of women. Women have knowledge regarding species connected to the household, to health, and with food safety, they men know more about products that are connected to trade. These are these are knowledges that can be compared, but you can't select one or the other. Both of them are necessary. If you for example, encourage the sale of a product, this cannot be prioritized over a product that is strong in food safety. Nonetheless, many women are excluded and they have limited access sometimes to forest resources. And although this is an important group regarding agricultural production, so here we can outline a number of differences that we see in our society, and we see them in different sectors. So we just cannot say just because we have a tool that seems complete, the other problems will be resolved. And this is why we have to continue using tools that aim at inclusion, as I demonstrated when I talked about gender. If we don't do this, well, of course, this can contribute to increase the income. There can be more resiliency toward catastrophes. If we don't do this, we can run the risk to perpetuate unequal income and increase social inequalities. So thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Liliana, for your perspective and for talking about gender, giving us this view that it's absolutely fundamental. And we are going to end this segment uh, with Felipe. What would you complement to regarding challenges, and especially how can we scale investments in undertakings? Could you please give us your perspective? Thank you very much, Irene, for your introduction, and the World Economic Forum for their invitation, and all the participants. Biorefinery and by and large cluster SumaSach'a is dedicated to sustainable food. We produce omega-3 through Sacha Inchi, something that promotes well-being of communities, well-being of consumers. And we started with Sacha Inchi from a pool of 29 species of the biodiversity of the Amazon region that we can benefit to provide benefits to a dilemma of the egg and the between sales and funding in a certain way. In a second, hierarchy in the supply. Allow me to outline each one of them. As Loic mentioned, funding is very complex, and it's complex to assure because activities sometimes are risky. And with this, in order to scale production, we need strong capex investment, both in the industry and also in the production. And when there are volatilities from the funders, sometimes the economic feasibility is put into checkmate here. Or once again, to funding without sales is very difficult, but to sell without funding is also difficult because we have new products and we have to show them to the world. Here, for example, the panelists, I don't know how many of the 300 participants that are connected know what Sach'a is. This would be an interesting activity to see which percentage of the that are aware of Sach'a. It's low, the amount of people that know about this product. So a new product needs new investments in trade and in marketing, and they also need financing and risk capital. The negotiations are long because customers, the consumers don't know the product. The traders don't know much about these products as well. And finally, a price volatility, especially when it comes to supply. And this is connected to my third pillar of volatility in prices doesn't allow us to have a flow trade. Because when there is volatility in the chain, we cannot offer the best prices, or it is difficult to establish a price or a constant price. And to reduce volatility for customers and consumers, we have a challenge in supply. That is part of the production, speaking of in agricultural terms, because this volatile demand can generate like waves, can generate growth, waves, bubbles of production and sowing. But when the bubble bursts, when we no longer have this growth in the bubble, this generates a lack of trust from the farmers and producers. And at the end, there is a lack of availability. This is a virtuous circle between sales, supply, and investment. And this can turn into a virtuous circle where based on visibility, we can foster sales, and with sales, we can facilitate the activity of achieving more resources, and with resources and sales, the trust of consumers increases in order to promote all of these undertakings. Thank you, Felipe, and congratulations for everything that you've built up till the date from Biorefinery-SumaSach'a. These over 1,000 people that are registered, that are participating here in Zoom and in other channels. Well, at least we can guarantee that well, these people now know more about Sach'a than before. Now we will have a brief block because we have only a couple of minutes, but we will see this from the solution point of view. So we will start with Gregorio. Gregorio, since the beginning, you were talking in aspirational terms. In terms of solutions, I would like to deep dive on this, and I would like to know which would be your recommendation, Gregorio, starting from the traditional indigenous knowledge and how this can drive the efforts to consolidate a bioeconomy and to foster all of this. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Well, number one, we need principles because we're talking about families and communities, communitary companies, family enterprises, because, and this is communities and territories. So this would be, here we have there is a different vision. As the first principle is everything that we do should be positive, but it should not generate more inequalities in the communities, the inequalities, participation, gender, economics, and the benefits. And the community should be benefited to maintain harmony with nature. I believe that what is key here, as I mentioned, when we talk about principles, the effective participation, funds, budgets, decision making at the same level beyond safeguards, we need an equal distribution of benefits, good faith and trust if there are governments and responsible corporation. But currently, it is important to have an implementation plan where we can incorporate our products. We need funds, seeds to create real capacities from the territory. If there are companies that are in the cities and the capitals of the city that face difficulty, can you imagine people that live in a farm? This is complicated. We should also have a production route from territory to local, national, international. We need networks that should incorporate the borders of our countries. This is something goes beyond borders. The legalization of family companies is important. We need a legal framework in order to operate. Generally, community people sell their products in the street without a certification. This is why we need a financing also technical, political training of this type of economy to know how to management, and everything that we do should not cause irreversible damage to nature. Our economy does not cause irreversible damages to nature. This is why it should be treated specially. And currently, these partnerships, we want partnerships to be fruitful for the debate, support, but we need a special fund to have more ambition and to reach more territories, because at the end of the line, it is the planet that is facing a complex situation. And we as human beings are also facing this complex situation. Thank you, Gregorio. So we can move. Liliana, we would like your perspective, and then Carlos. Yes, I would like to complement something to Gregorio's comment. Obviously, currently we are challenged by the COVID recovery packages that will represent, they can be an additional opportunity. Now, to me, well, when I see what Global IUCN has done, would we be to review the nature-based solutions that are compatible with bioeconomy opportunities? I would like to highlight that currently there is there is a norm that has standardized all of this. We are bringing more names. Here we have the restoration. We already have examples of how crops are used for climate change. Also, mangroves are also used here. Here we have to integrate local knowledge, as Gregorio mentioned, and these instruments offer proper standard. I urge you to review these standards. They are full of criteria and they are complete. And first, we have to clearly identify which is the social challenge that we want to face after deal with the scale and what we are promoting that are these solutions based on nature and bioeconomy. They are compatible, but we must follow step by step the standards that have been established. And and recovery packages should be used to reactivate the economy and follow the guides that have been published. These are my 2 cents. Thank you very much, Liliana, and we can place these guides here for all the participants. Carlos? Thank you. During the first stage of the presentation, we've seen how complex this matter is, not only how complex it is, but even with all the efforts that are being carried out in different areas and in different stages connected to bioeconomy, ACTO, well, within our competency framework and the mandates of the country, we have mechanism of coordination and articulation in the different countries at a national level, and we have permanent national committees, and they are integrated by all the players that represent the Amazon, and in the regional ACTO coordinates all of these activities. And I would like to mention that in 2021, in the 8 Amazon countries agreed to important program, the Amazon Biodiversity Program, that also sees the first fast assessment of of Amazonic biodiversity. This is the first time we do it, and also the forest program, sustainable management of forest. And here we have a memorandum of fires. What it sees is how this phenomenon affects the Amazon biodiversity. The region has these tools, but what we need is more cooperation and more investment from the public and the private sector. This is why we are very thankful for this invitation. And then because here we want to contribute so people can better understand how difficult it is to manage the Amazon, not only because it's a big geographic extension, but also because it is shared by 8 different countries with different governments, and all of them are united. And finally, we expect this webinar to be an important step toward the attraction of new investment and opportunities for joint participation. We are working with the IDB, CAF. We are working with different strategic partners that can start identifying different areas, or ICA, that is the National Research Institute of Brazil, and jointly with INPE, we want an initiative that could become, that could help to develop this bioeconomy that I insist in all countries. All countries have a different view, but we can agree on what is common for us at the regional level. Thank you very much, Carlos. So Loic, from the investment point of view, and Felipe as the entrepreneur, how do we put this into practice? How do we apply financing? How can we conserve, restore the forest, and to avoid non-desirable consequences that Liliana mentioned, and to foster sustainable growth of undertakings like Felipe's undertaking, Loic, and then Felipe. Well, I believe as a solution, I would like to suggest to make my suggestion on capital, the type of capital that we need, because many times we criticize because of the lack of capacity of the entrepreneurs. Nonetheless, the investors should also change their practices so that they can properly participate in bioeconomy. And here we have 2 or 3 steps that all of us need to bear in mind in the ecosystem. Number one, the entrepreneurs of bioeconomy say that what they need most is long-term capital. This does not exist. All the capital, even from impact investment, most of this capital is short-term capital. And this short-term capital is for working capital and to finance commercial operation. And it does not strengthen the organization and doesn't teach them how to deal with investments based on a cash flow. This is number one. Another suggestion would be in NEST, we invest up to $500,000 in the current economy. Sometimes in bioeconomy, sometimes it is difficult to find undertakings that can absorb $500,000, but there are many other entrepreneur companies that need 50,000, 60,000, $100,000, and but they're not interested in impact investments because this costs a lot. We need to create financing instruments that can be adapted to bioeconomy so that to benefit the indigenous local communities. And these are 2 recommendations and solutions that we should co-design in order to increase the capital flow toward bioeconomy. Thank you, Loic. Now, Felipe, what would you like to say to Felipe, your suggestion to the entrepreneurs? My suggestion to entrepreneurs is we should be aware that paradigms have been broken. We're in a post-COVID world where sustainability and profitability don't exclude each other. We can carry out business, and when they are more sustainable, they are more profitable, and sustainability includes as it includes the generation in the long term of economic benefits, it also includes the generation of benefits in the long term to communities and the environment. If you don't have these 3 points, you will have a short-term business. And we have to know that uh, the horizon of human beings is longer, so our practices should be coherent with this sustainability, knowing that this profitability is recognized by the funders. And I believe that this is something that has been mentioned by a number of participants, that is inclusiveness, how to distribute benefits to communities, how to distribute these benefits that we are reaping. And one is the inclusiveness and to be partners of companies. And this we do it in the SumaSach'a model. Our suppliers, employees, they are partners of the ecosystem. So they're just and so the farmers aren't just farmers of raw material, but we are the owners of the companies because we benefit from the profit and from the activities and the trade. As Gregorio mentions, we need mutual trust. We need a joint view, long-term joint view in order to have partnerships that will allow us all to achieve what we want. The recommendation, take action. If we don't do anything, nothing will happen. Maybe we can make mistakes, but if you don't take action, if you don't make mistakes, nothing will never happen. Thank you, Felipe. Trust, action. Nicole, we have 2 minutes to share your thoughts and obviously the call to action, and then we will finish with a small video.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for this really fascinating conversation. So I took away first that we're in a state of emergency. The time for pilot projects is over. We need action now, and we need a high ambition implementation plan. And then from the panelists, I heard 4 very strong recommendations. The first one is when we talk about a bioeconomy, we're talking about an intercultural planetary economy that places life at its center, that respects the planet. And this entails direct partnership with indigenous people and benefit sharing. Second, we need to take a gender lens when we look at the challenges and solutions for the Amazon bioeconomy, and we need to address the structural problems that exclude women from governance processes and access to resources. Third, we need financing instruments that are adapted to the bioeconomy, including long-term financing to strengthen organizations and catalytic finance. And fourth, we need to embrace ecopreneurship as a paradigm change. And this means that the business models of the past are no longer suited to the world that we're in and to the emergency that we're facing. And we need everyone to become an ecopreneur and basically embrace this fact that delivering biodiversity benefits, ecosystem services benefits, social benefits, and financial returns comes hand in hand, and that we can no longer just focus on one of them. So with that, I think this is a perfect segue to invite all of you to share and to join us for this year's challenge for the Amazon bioeconomy. We hope to get as many submissions as possible to encourage as many ecopreneurs to apply and to share their innovations and their solutions, and to join the Uplink Innovation Network and be evaluated for potential co-financing from the IDB group, which is also an exciting opportunity to help all of these projects scale. So we hope we hear from many of you and that you can share this word as widely as possible. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Nicole. Vamos a dar unos 2 minutos de un vídeo para terminar con este llamado de acción.
Thank you very much. We are going to conclude with a 3-minute video, but first, we would like to thank Felipe, Loic, Gregorio, Carlos, Liliana for being here and for giving us very important and complementary perspectives. And with that, then let's go to the video. And best of luck to anyone who joins this challenge.
Our main purpose is to promote, through innovation, a more inclusive region that addresses particularly the needs of the poor and the vulnerable also to the climate crisis.
un llamado a todas las empresas responsables.
We make a call to all of the indigenous peoples who accept this challenge. We will try to get the word out that this is an economic initiative in the world. We also want to support the fight in favor of the forests.
To be part of this selected group validates our instruments, our value proposition, and organizations consider us as a reliable partner to work. I think this is the biggest advantage to be part of uplink of 1 trillion trees of the family of the World Economic Forum.